So, welcome to the No Love Podcast, where we decrease tomorrow's divorce rate today by teaching singles and couples alike how to experience love on purpose and not by chance. I'm your host, Edward L. Fairley, accompanied by my wonderful co-host, Michelle Larkin. Michelle, say hi to the people.
Hey, y'all.
All right, so we're going to dive right on in. This is such a necessary topic. It's an underlying issue that I think a lot of people don't realize is going on. So I'm glad that I'll be able to unveil the problem to empower people to recognize it, and which in turn will empower them to prevent it from allowing it to be an issue in their respective relationships. The title of today's topic is Standards Deserve Your Commitment, but Expectations Preserve Your Resentment. So I'm going to start by defining what standards are. Standards are your morals, your values, ethics, basically things that you live by, and hopefully, prayerfully, what it is that you use to choose the mate that you ended up getting into a relationship with. So these are things that you should have as a foundational thing that you and your mate share. And on the other hand, you have expectations. Expectations are you giving or holding accountable or giving a responsibility of external things and persons for projected assumptive responses or outcomes that you put or created in your mind. So you holding other persons accountable for a assumptive conclusion or outcome to happen that you created in your mind. It wasn't shared. It wasn't defined by you with the other person or even the thing. And I'm going to give you an example of what I mean in a moment before we dive in. But it is basically you holding something outside of yourself accountable and responsible for a expected outcome. That is what expectations are. You have an expectation, or you think that a certain outcome should happen or will happen, and you place all your emotion into that particular outcome in hopes that it's going to come to fruition. So I'll give an example of what that looks like. It was years ago. I was in the, what do you call it? The break room. Yeah, the break room of the establishment that I worked for. And we were all talking, chit-chatting, and there was a guy that came in the room and he picked up the coffee mug. Hey, Krista Collins, good to see you. He picked up the coffee mug and he poured the coffee into the coffee mug, and then he went and he drank from the coffee mug. And then he snapped. Why is this coffee cold? Who has cold coffee? Why in the world would there be cold coffee in the coffee mug? Who creates cold coffee? Why? I mean, he was livid. Clearly, he does not like cold coffee. He was upset. And he stormed out of the room. Now, fast forward to about a month or two from that date, we all decided to go to Starbucks. And when we got to Starbucks, we all putting in our orders, and then I see him ordering from the Starbucks. And after he finished ordering, the woman that did his order, she asked, would you like that hot or cold? And I'm sitting back like, I know the answer to this. This is easy. And I sat back and I watched him say that he wanted cold coffee. And my whole face got distorted. I'm like, wait, what just happened? I remember him being livid when we were in the actual break room and he poured cold coffee. Now he's ordering a cold coffee. And as we left the Starbucks and headed back to the building, I'm watching him sip and drink this cold coffee, and he is the happiest person that I had ever seen. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? And it dawned on me what happened. In the break room, he expected hot coffee. And when he drank from it, it was cold coffee. So he decided that he was mad. When he went to Starbucks, he ordered cold coffee, expected cold coffee, and when he drank it, he decided to be happy. And this is what I mean by expectations. There are people that have expectations of things that are external, things that they have no people. They expect people to have these or align with their expectations, and when they don't, they decide to be upset. A lot of people are having arguments, and they're not really arguing with the person. They're arguing with the fact that their expectations did not align with the outcome that they projected in the atmosphere. Now, on the other hand, I titled this "Standards Deserve Your Commitment" because with standards, those are things that are worth fighting for. And clearly, I don't mean fist fighting, but I mean you standing up for them. If your standards have things embedded in them like respect, or you have a belief system, again, I would hope that you have chosen your mate with those things in mind. But if you didn't, for one, you're going to have problems with your relationship because you're always going to be fighting against that. But if you chose someone with that, you need to articulate the fact that, for one, I will not be disrespected. I don't care how long me and my wife have been married, happily married, but I won't be disrespected. That is my standard. And that is something outside of me that I will not allow another person to disregard. So I will not be called out of my name. I will not be talked down to. Those things I'm going to check. I'm going to address, and I'm going to speak about if they do not align with my expectations of my standards. How about that? So if someone is coming at me and they are clearly, hey, Miss Lisa, Michelle, she said hi to you as well. She waved at you. So if someone is attacking my standards, I will stand up for that. And I'm going to explain how I will not tolerate anything less than my standards in that regard. But even with that, that is someone that is responding to me, and it's something towards me. I will live up to my standards, and I will walk by my standards, and I will not allow anyone to violate my standards. Now, my expectations, on the other hand, if I have an expectation, which I only have expectations of myself, this is something, and I can't stress this enough. These are the things that I'm teaching, they're things that I had to learn myself. Just like that was the epiphany or the aha moment for me when I saw the guy get excited about the actual cold coffee. So, so expectations are what we typically are fighting about, and we're going to figure out how to prevent ourselves from getting so caught up in our expectations to prevent a lot of these arguments, which again, they're not arguments or conflicts about the actual thing. It's typically an argument about your expectation that you put out and they had no idea what you were talking about. So now that we've defined those things, I saw Michelle write down several things, and I'm interested in finding out what those things are. So I'm going to pass it all over to her so we can go ahead and have a conversation about this. Yeah.
Expectations are dangerous in all walks of life. Yes. But what jumped out at me is the two things is, it's unfortunate that sometimes we have expectations of others that we don't have of ourselves. And so they really become hooks on which to judge someone or framework on judging someone to meet something that you haven't even met for yourself. And again, that goes back to a couple of conversations ago that we've had, which is if you're a half or you're looking for someone to fulfill some sort of need, then your expectation on them is much different than what you have on yourself. And is that really fair? I'm sure that will come out in conversation. But the other thing is that by default, the human experience is it's everybody else's fault. That's like our go-to is it's not me. It's got to be somebody else, which tends to fuel a conspiracy theory. No matter what your expectations are, it must be that they were coming for me, or it couldn't be that they made a mistake. Those are the feelings that kind of came up when you were talking about conspiracy. I'm sorry, expectations and relationships, and I've had
conspiracy. You're right.
All right, like you just go in this downward spiral with somebody about what you didn't do, because typically when we talk about expectations, we're talking about what somebody didn't do. Yeah. We're not usually talking about how they met my expectations, they exceeded my expectations. We don't typically talk about that. They don't deserve affirmation, but they definitely need judgment and coercion or encouragement to do the right thing. And so I hope that part of what we're talking about tonight is, the flip side. Just positive and negative. People need affirmation too. So expectations can be exceeded.
Yeah.
And you can be pleasantly surprised.
Good evening, sir. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I'm just, I think that we tend to focus on what not to do. And part of that is because the intent of this conversation is to jar some people's thought process and to kind of shake them up a little bit. But I'm always glass half full. I'm just, we all just get along.
Let's go over some examples of what this looks like so people can really see themselves in the actual event and how crazy this can be and how it can cause so much problems in a relationship. The most common that I see or I hear or I've even experienced is like if you have a disagreement or something that you want to bring to the table or something that you want to address. You play in your mind what you're going to say, and then you play how they're going to respond to it. So I'm going to say this. Then he or she is going to say this. And then, if he really goes in on this, I'm going to throw this card down, and that's going to solve he's not going to have anything to say after that. And then we bring our picture that we did in our mind. and we throw out our cards, and they don't respond anywhere near the way that we actually thought that it was going to work. It's typically this is going to win the argument or this is going to get him or her to do this. And when it does not happen, we lose it. We lose it, and it's not that other person's fault because they weren't given the script that you created in your mind, so they didn't know their parts. And then we start resenting them, and we're fighting and arguing with them, and it has absolutely nothing to do with the actual circumstance or situation at hand. And we typically don't even address the actual the thing that you were bringing to their attention in the first place. So now we are arguing and frustrated, and the person that is responding is defending what they're being accused of, and the other person is fighting for the picture that they created in their heads, and there's nothing that's resolved, and then there's resentment, and now you feel like they don't. We attach all these conclusions. Now we start bringing this expectation and trying to align it with our standards. This is if he or she loved me, this is how she would have responded, or if he or she loved me, she would have done whatever that thing was, or she would have responded the way that it was. I know people that will buy like a concert ticket or something, and something that they like, and then they present it to their respective mate, and they're like, "Oh, thank you," but they pictured them being like, "Oh my goodness, thank you so much. I'm so glad that you purchased this for me. How you doing, Apostle Webster?" And when they do not get that response, they're like, "Oh,
disappointed me."
Well, no, they're ungrateful. They're ungrateful, disrespectful. I done spent all my money on this. This person is just who does that? They don't appreciate anything. And it's like, wow, first of all, did that person really ask for that? Or did you put in your mind that they like that and you just found out the hard way that that's not something that they're interested in? And I see you right now. I don't want you to lose your thought, Michelle. Go ahead, jump in.
Oh, no, I'm writing, so I won't lose it. It's okay.
Okay, all right. All right, Mr. Dean Wood, good to see you. Frat Malcolm, good to see you, sir. So we're talking about expectations versus standards. And oftentimes, matter of fact, majority of the time, we are fighting or having conflict about our expectations, which are our assumed conclusions or outcomes that we project and make responsible for people that are outside of ourselves to live up to, even though they don't have the script, they don't know what you were thinking or how you thought this was going to pan out. And once that does not align with the outcome, then we're mad at them. And it's not fair. I'm going to start with that. I'm going to make this a clear statement. That's not fair. They're not responsible for how you concluded that the script was going to go. And half the time, you never even relay the actual message to them for them to even learn from it. You're just frustrated that they did not do what you expected them to do or respond the way that you assume that they will respond. And now you're really fighting about that and trying to make it about what you brought the topic, what you brought to the table in the first place. So now we're talking about two different things. We're literally fighting over two different things. Your passion and your emotions are about the expectations not being met, but you're making it seem like it's about the actual conflict or issue at hand. Go ahead, Michelle.
No, yes, it's not a no. I'm not going to start with no. It's yes. And the expectations, the way that you were describing it, and I was just playing out the other side of that conversation, right? So you've done all those things, and I don't respond the way that you want to. It ultimately, at the root of this, and your root word, right? But it's control, because you're not, the moment that you are not, your expectations aren't being met, that scenario that you played out in your life, in your head, didn't play out, then you've lost control, and you're kind of in this free fall. And if the discomfort of that is what causes all this extra. It's like, but you're also not entering into a conversation if you've kind of already written the script. You're not allowing the other person to have an opinion. That's right. That you're open to, because you've already written the script, and anything other than the script, it means that then you're not understanding me. Well, you didn't give me a chance to be me. Hey, I had a different day today.
That's so good. That's good. And so you're exactly right. So basically, indirectly, what you just said is you missed an opportunity to learn something about who you're interacting with. You totally missed an opportunity for you to grow and learn from one another. It's really simple as simple as you sharing, okay, so this is the story, and I'm serious by saying this. You saying, okay, this is the story that I have going on in my head. Like right now, I'm gonna be honest with you. I feel like you are like, I don't understand how you're not excited about this, or how could you not appreciate this? Please tell me where I'm wrong in this. And listen to where they're coming from, because half the time we don't even get to that point because we're so upset and we're in our feelings and we're so frustrated about us not getting the outcome that we looked for that we never take the time to ask what their script is. What are you thinking right now? Why do you feel that the way that you did it is okay? Why do you feel, and you might even find that in the end that was something that you'd adopt as appreciative. Like I remember, I think I shared, like when my wife and I, when we first got married, I didn't have, because my schedule was so random, I didn't have a set date to get a haircut. And the irony, I need a haircut right now. And I would go and get a haircut on random days and come home, and my wife she would never notice. She would never notice that I got a haircut. And it used to drive me crazy because in my mind, I expected to hear, oh, babe, you got a haircut. Your haircut looks good. You look nice. This is the expectations that I had when I came home from the day that I got a haircut. And she would never meet my expectations. And for the longest time, I resented my wife and felt that she could not possibly really love me because she doesn't even notice when I get a haircut. Does that sound familiar, ladies? Have you ever felt like your man did not like you because he didn't notice that you got your hair done? He didn't notice that you got a new shade of lipstick or nail polish. I had one lady when I worked at Food Line when I was younger, because which is why I got frustrated. I'm very, very attentive. So it was a woman that frequented Food Line, and I noticed that she changed her contact color. So I said, "Wow, you got new contacts." I said, "They're nice," and she said, "Thank you," and rolled her eyes at her man.
He noticed.
And walked off. No, she said, "Thanks for noticing," and walked off with her man. So I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry." So I shared those two stories to say, because I'm attentive, I expected my wife to be attentive. And because she was not, I got emotional and upset and frustrated and felt that she did not love me. How could you love somebody that you can't even tell that they had a drastic change or whatever? Sometimes I'll tell them to cut it lower than I typically would get just to see if they would notice it. And she wouldn't notice. So one day I got fed up, frustrated enough to bring it to her attention. This is the whole me saying, okay, so this is the story that I'm playing in my head, share it with that person, and then get your feedback from them. So I said, how in the world do you not notice when I get a haircut? Like, I can't understand that. If you love me, how can you not tell that there's a drastic change? Like, I feel like the daggone barber does art. He makes me change. Like, he transforms me. I look horrible when I go to him, and I feel much better when I leave him. So how can you not see?
So do we. Thank you.
I'm like, how do you not see this transformation? And my wife, just as calm, said, "Well, babe, I mean, that's not how I see you." She said, "When you get a haircut, does sex increase?" I'm like, "No." So when you don't have a haircut, does it decrease? Like, am I less interested in you? And I'm like, "No." And she said, "That's because that's not what makes me interested in you. That's not what I see. I apologize that I don't notice that you get a haircut or when you get a haircut, but that's not how I view you. That's not what I'm necessarily attracted to when it comes to you." And when she shared that, I was like, well, dang, this woman really is interested in me. And from that point forward, check this out. I'm like, if she ever notices that I have a haircut, I'm gonna have a problem.
She done got shallow on me. What happened?
I had a paradigm shift in thought after I finally understood where she was coming from and not recognizing that I had a haircut. So it's our expectation. So I'm walking around for I don't know how many months or even years that I'm resenting my wife and feeling that she doesn't even love me enough to recognize details to where I'm resenting her, but I never gave her a chance to actually explain herself because she didn't know what was going on in my head, my script, or why I'm even frustrated with her. So go ahead, Michelle.
I think that that goes back to my point originally of the ability to be present enough to allow the person to have their own response. I think one of my favorite things is playing out the scripts, because I do understand how it's comfortable to play some scenarios out, especially if you're uncomfortable about sharing. And I go back to the conversation we had a couple weeks ago about ask your potential husband or wife, how do you see this marriage? Which could be an uncomfortable question if you're not sure, because it might change the trajectory of this relationship. So yeah, I get playing out in your head what the scenarios might be so that you can kind of emotionally prepare. However, what I think is really cool about humans and interaction is that the surprise answers are what are really cool. Like you got this whole script and you're and I've got an answer for this and I've got an answer for this, and they give you the third answer. And you're like, what? Did you what? Excuse me? Hold on, wait a second. wait, that's not on the list. Hold on, wait a minute. I got checked. What am I supposed to say to that? But it also, what's funny is that if we get the expected answer too many times, we feel like people have checked out, or that we've learned them enough and now we know them so well, they're just boring to us. right? Like, but we want to have the expectations. So you didn't meet my expectation, but if they meet them too often, you're like, are you even here? Because I done already figured you out.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm bored now.
That's what's so crazy about this is if I go into a room and I'm doing like a session, a teaching about relationships, I will have people, I say, how many people agree that opposites attract? And pretty much everybody will raise their hand. And then I say, well, why do you all have problems when your opposite responds opposite?
The opposite way.
So it's crazy. And one of the best ways that I've heard it stated is first opposites attract and then opposites attack. So now we're attacking the fact that you're my opposite when it was the fact that you were my opposite that attracted me to you in the first place. And what's happening, unfortunately, is that we are trying to duplicate ourselves in other people. And the crazy thing about that is if you have two of the same things, one of you is not needed. And it makes just for a boring relationship. I don't want to sit and talk to me all day. I enjoy it myself, but I wouldn't like to communicate. Like, I can't learn anything new from myself. I walk around with this mind all day. Some people are fascinated by it. I'm like, I live with it every day. You found that impressive. I'm like, okay, God bless you. But I prefer to get some different things out from other people. And let me see what Lisa wrote. She said, laugh out loud. This is funny but true because I assume my husband should know the script in my head, and I am so ready to let him have it if he gets it wrong. People do it all the time. This is exactly why I wanted to bring this to your attention, and that's why I started with standards versus expectations, because standards, that's why I put that as a non-negotiable list. You should not bend on standards, and even with standards, you're expressing and articulating what you expect from them in reference to how they treat you. Like, you're not going to talk to me like that. I'm standing up for my standards. Expectations, on the other hand, you put out, like, standards is, there's no script in that. It's responding to someone that is responding to you incorrectly. That's what that is. There's no script in me. I'm not saying after I say this, she will respectfully do this and whatever. No, I'm saying, who are you talking to like that? You will not talk to me in that manner. Are you? No. Or, all right, for example, when it comes to my standards and my priorities, it's God, family, business. That's how I make probably every decision in my life, whether it be my household and things of that nature. It's God, family, business, in that order. So how that works for those who are not spiritual or don't have a relationship with God, you might not understand this, but it doesn't matter. I'm sharing what my priorities are. God, family, business. So when God speaks to me and shares what it is that I need to do, I will share that with my wife, but it's not for us to have a debate or an actual discussion about it, or my mind is necessarily going to change. That's basically what I'm about to do. You can either jump on board or you can stay behind, but this is what I'm about to do, and this is how I'm going through and following through with it. On the other hand, if my wife, she needs me in business, whether it be no love or my job, they come to me. If my wife needs me, I'm going to go to my job and say, hey, my wife needs me for this time. I understand that it conflicts with our time. But I'm not doing this for us to have a debate or even conversation about whether I'm gonna do it or not. I'm just letting you know what I'm about to do. There's no room or wiggle room for a compromise. This is what I'm about to do because my wife needs me. She's a priority over my job. Then my job comes before anything miscellaneous under it. Now that I'll juggle. I'll just make a decision in my mind, but it's God, family, business. That's my priority. I'm not wiggling or adjusting for anyone when it comes to that particular way that I make my decisions. So those are my standards. and again, I would hope that you have, even if it's not in that order, you've chosen someone that has similar standards. And but when it comes to expectations, that's a total different thing. That's you literally have, just like that man had the control to decide that he didn't like cold coffee on one day and decide that he did like coffee on the other day. It's all a decision. We're deciding that we're upset with our mates about our expectations. And just like we decided to be happy when they met them, we can decide that they're not responsible for our responses or emotions when they do not align with them. Go ahead, Michelle.
I'm just looking at the title for tonight and listening to what you were saying. I was really focusing on the different standards deserve your commitment, right? And you keep referring to standards as something that I believe in, something I'm kind of committed to. It's something that's part of my core. And what came to my mind was that standards ultimately express themselves as habits, right? And it becomes, you can see somebody's standards in the way they behave and react to certain things. And it's their core foundation, and it deserves commitment because you can count on it, right? Yeah. So they're committed to it. You know, it's part of their habits. So therefore you can count on it and commit your relationship, to that particular aspect because you can depend on it. And expectations are a little different. Expectations are projected, interpretations of habits. So that's like, and it's based on your own filter and your own experience. And so if your standard is, I like hot coffee, and your habit is to always drink hot coffee, and I've been burnt by hot coffee, then I want to know why you even have hot coffee near you. Don't you know the risks associated? Don't you know that if you and me are close together and you have hot coffee, then I'm going to have a problem because I'm going to be a little anxious and nervous. But again, that's projected based on my interpretation. And so my own experience has been in relationships, and I'll try to be as transparent as I can, but in relationships, coming from in my profession, being always a decision maker and being controlling, because that's what I'm paid to do, is be in control. And then coming into a relationship, having expectations based on what I do all day, and expecting to be able to express some certain things and interpret certain things. And I know how to read people because I'm a manager. And then you're in a relationship and you can't read their behavior because you're not their manager. So they're not showing you that side of them. And so I'm just exploring the idea that the consideration is really at the root of this. It's like I have to consider whether I should commit to you, but I also need to consider where I'm coming from and how I'm interpreting this exchange, so I can determine whether that should change my behaviors. And consideration requires self-reflection. And that's one of the things this whole conversation is about, why we keep having these conversations, is look yourself in the mirror, check yourself first, then filter everything else from there. Because love kind of is coming from the inside first in order for you to see it. So I was just really focusing on standards and the habitualness of them and how that really plays into the conversation.
There's a couple of things that you said that jumped out at me. One being, I'm committed. And that's what I'm trying to stress to you all. Like, standards, they're things that you are committed. That does not necessarily mean that other people are committed to what your commitments are. The second thing that I heard you say was, in your management role, you have expectations of those persons, but that makes sense. Why? Because you are in a controlled environment and they know their job. So it is expected for them to respond to certain tasks based off of the way that they were trained to do so. So the thing about expectations that we're referencing is not in a controlled environment, nor have we trained them to respond. Remember, they don't know your script. So in a management environment, that was trained responses. So you have expectations of them abiding by the training that you all had given them. That doesn't work.
Or the authority of my role.
Exactly.
I don't have the authority of my role in a budding relationship. I mean, I think they grow, but my role is equal to yours the most in the relationship. Like, hey, I don't have an authority. Let me just whip out on you and be like, you got to do what I say. Unless I throw down my card and be like, we're done.
But now we laugh and joke, but the reason why I brought this up is because that's what's happening. People are being done because their expectations have not been met.
Amen.
That's what's happening. And that is a problem that can easily be fixed if we stop putting our expectations on other people, or we at least share our scripts with other people to allow for them to even adjust themselves or share what their thought process or their script is, and we grow together. But we're not doing that. We are sticking to our expectations, which have nothing to do with our standards. They're not challenging our standards. They're not challenging our values. They're not challenging our morals. They're just not aligned with what we have in our mind as an expectation. I expect for him to have those clothes done by the time I got home. Like, okay, he didn't. Now what?
Deal with this, right? So go with that for a second. I expect him to have the clothes done when I get home. How is that different from I expect him to open the door for me? So to me, I see the difference as opening the door is a standard of chivalry, right? So or it's a standard of chivalry. So I'm holding somebody to a standard that I have of chivalry, which means open the door. So I expect you to open the door. And if you don't, then you give me some indicator that, you might not be the most chivalrous person on the planet. I expect you to walk on the outside as a dude than on the inside, but I got some training that says that's chivalry. And so that's a reasonable kind of filter for conversation. Now, expecting somebody to have the clothes done when you get home, when you haven't had any kind of, was there
no conversation?
Like, what? How does that work?
Nope.
Like,
nope.
And okay, so I'm gonna ask you this question because you're a dude. So you tell the dude, nice guy, I like clothes clean. I like my bed made, and I like the room to look a certain way, and they don't do it. What do you do then? Because you have expectations after telling them that I want A, B, and C done, and they don't do it. How does that play out in this scenario? What should I do?
All right, so that's a great question. All right, so I want to address a couple things. First, we're going to start with the whole chivalry thing that you brought up. So this is why if you notice in the beginning, I said, hopefully I'm praying that you chose someone based on your standards. All right, so hopefully you chose someone based on your standards. It's a filter.
That was the indicator. Should I yes or no?
That's why I call it a non-negotiable list. So hopefully you've chosen someone based off of your standards. Now, once you've made that choice, now you have to deal with the choice that you made. And I say that to say a lot of people are marrying people. And again, we just had this conversation a couple shows back. They have the I do in mind. I do want you to start doing this. Now, the question is, have you ever seen this person have clothes folded and have them up and neat and done in a specific manner? Now, if you raise your children to do that, that's great. But you're talking about a grown person. So if you have a problem with the clothes not being done, you have the problem with the clothes not being done. You fix it. You can ask all you want, but you cannot make someone outside of yourself do what you want them to do. I'm sorry. It doesn't work that way. And I apologize that you have to deal with them not cleaning the dishes, but they never did dishes before you. How can you get upset with them now? Now, what you can do is be consistent to where they get to the point where they're inspired to do for you, but you getting mad that someone doesn't do what you want them to do, even after you express to them that you want them to do it. Again, if it's not going against your values, because clothes, I'm sorry, that's not disrespecting you. It's not.
Some people take it that way. Some people take.
So we're going back to a choice. So you can choose to and I said that earlier. I said we take our expectations and then we try to attach them to our standards and our values. They're not the same thing. and you're trying to make them as equally important, and that's just not the way that it is. You have to accept the fact that you made the decision to get someone that is dirty. You didn't see him clean up before. Now you expect them, and expectations to do that now. Now you can ask. Go ahead.
That is a profound statement in that, and I'm speaking from being a divorcee, is that the expectations making you angry after the fact because you're expecting something to change based on a change in the category of relationship, right? So whether you go from dating to boyfriend and girlfriend, you're expecting, well, what they did as a date, they're gonna do different when they're my boyfriend or girlfriend. And then you think, oh, well, once we get the ring and the commitment, they're gonna feel some kind of way and do better or different. And I'm going to attest that while just like in dating, you can fake the funk for a minute because we all believe that's like a socialization thing. We all understand that as you gradually step through these relationship hoops, the expectations go up, right? We all know. I'm dating you, my expectations here. When I get to boyfriend and girlfriend here, so we can fake the funk for a minute until we get there, and then somewhere halfway into the marriage, you go, the dating person, I was trying to, I can't sustain. I just can't sustain. And then you get somebody who's upset.
And I don't want you all to lose that. So I'm glad you brought that to our attention, because after you express that this is what I expect, or this is what I want, and this is why I want it, whether they do it or not, or you getting mad that they didn't do it after you shared that, that's still an expectation. You said to yourself, after I tell him that this is what I want, now he's gonna do it. Who said that?
Because of how much he's got invested.
He's got investment agreement that was gonna be the case. That's not how it works. Now, like I have people that I had a guy, one of my clients. He said, I got married, and I just knew he was looking. I'll end it with that. I just knew that she was clean. She kept the house and stuff tidy up and things of that nature. And I just knew that that's what I was marrying. And I said, well, did you ever see her do that when y'all were in a relationship or dating? And he said, every time I went into her room and stuff, her room was always kept, clothes and stuff folded and put away. It was always food and stuff was cooked or whatever. And I was like, did she do any of that? And his eyes got big. He was like, no, her mom did all those things. Her mom had folded all those clothes.
You bought it off the shelf.
Her mom had kept the room tidy. Her mom always had a meal at the house. So when he came to the house, he actually fell in love with her mother.
Wow.
And she married him expecting him to be her mother. So it's now time for you to fold them clothes. It's now time for you to pick up after her. It's now time for you to make sure that she has dinner. You didn't see her do that. And now you're getting upset. And I've had times where my mother-in-law, because I'm the cook in the house. And my mother-in-law was like, well, Eddie, when you gonna tell your wife to cook or whatever? And I was like, she didn't cook when I was with her before I married her. Why would I expect for her to cook now? And she's like, but she doesn't need to do anything. Now, can my wife cook? There's certain things that she can cook. So I know she can cook. She can cook some things. It's not a big range of things, but I know she can make some things, but I don't expect.
She's not gonna die. She's not gonna starve.
No, that's my point. Because remember, I'll do anything for you as long as I know you can do it first. So I know I can probably pick on one hand what my children are gonna eat if I'm not cooking. If it's not gonna be outside of the actual house. So, where was I going with that statement? Oh, so I had no expectations. Now I had no expectations of my wife, doing that. But as the years went by, my wife was inspired to want to cook for me. So now there's times where she can tell that I'm tired and she'll cook. I never had that, and I'm just sharing that because your consistency, even though they might not do what it is that you want, your consistency may very well inspire them to do what it is that they never did before. So it's not necessarily counting them out, but also be mindful that you have the problem with that. If they had the problem with it, they would fix it. They're not fixing it because they don't have the problem with it. One thing that I don't do and refuse to do is wash cars. I will never wash a car. It's just not a thing that I do. I won't wash anybody's car. I won't wash my car, not washing my wife's car. And my wife, she used to get upset. Well, I want my car washed. My car's dirty. You upset that your car is dirty. Not my problem. If you want your car washed, go get it washed, or you can wash the car, but I'm not washing the car. Just not, I don't feel that's not a value, that's not a priority for me. In my mind, cars depreciate, so I don't see myself trying to keep it nice or whatever. Mentally, in my mind, it doesn't make sense. So I don't wash cars. My wife prefers her car washed, so she has a choice. Go get it washed, because I'm not doing it. Or she can get it washed. Now, sometimes she's out there with a bucket washing her car, but it's not something that I'm going to do. It's just not, it's not. But it's not my problem. I don't see that as a problem. So I share that because some people have expectations of things that people don't see as valuable, yet they expect them to just automatically find it valuable just like you do. It's not going to happen. You might inspire them to want to do it for you, might be a gift or something, but it's just not going to happen. So be mindful that you're deciding to be upset for something that you actually, if you want to have expectations that they're not going to change. And then what you going to do? You better work with the worst case scenario. Figure out what you're going to do, because in the end, that's it can go up from there. But having expectations of people outside of yourself is a very dangerous game to play. Very dangerous game to play. Go ahead, Michelle.
So out of the story that you said, what I picked up on was the emotional response I had to, I'm not gonna wash the car. I don't see it as value. I'm not gonna do it. Now, I had a visceral reaction to that. So I had to check myself for a second and go, where did that come from? How this dude not gonna wash the car? Because I'm one of them, like, I don't want to put gas in my car. So if we gonna get together, can you please put gas in the car? But that's, and in the process, I realized there are social expectations and role attributes that we ascribe to people. And if we don't feel like, for example, if it was me, I might have felt some kind of way. I'd have to work it out because we would talk. But yeah, my first reaction would be like, dude, like, that's part of what you do. Like, but that's an assumption. And it's an assumption based on social indicators or so environmental factors, right? And so your response could seem very callous to an outsider and very anti-social. However, it's within the framework of your relationship, because you guys have worked it out, it's perfectly reasonable and fine. And because what I'm saying is, don't let your expectations be so driven by what is socially acceptable within reason. I'm not saying be abused or anything like that, but there are social norms and role definitions and just things that we've kind of accumulated over time that haven't been vetted, so to speak, that can cause us to feel like we're not in the right relationship or it's not good, but we haven't respected the person's not being on our script enough to figure out, can we collaborate? Can we negotiate a truce? Can we figure out what works for us and let it work within this box that's our relationship? And if somebody doesn't like it, then they don't like it, but we've decided it works. And can you be strong in that? Because your expectations are always on Front Street. Everybody's kind of aware of it because we behave based on our expectations. So they're on. If your wife wasn't accepting of that, then she would constantly be walking around with an attitude every time her car was dirty. She just be, you know, but she found a way to connect with you and talk about it and go, again, just like you didn't realize that she didn't see your hair, and she had to realize that cars aren't valuable to you, and that not washing your car does not mean that you don't love her.
Yeah.
Like,
I clean the house. That makes sense to me. That I want to come in here, like in my car, I don't even see my car. I go to the car, on my way to the car, I see the car. When I get inside, I see outside. I don't see the car. The value of the car, it depreciates as soon as it drops off the water. Then
I'm
we're
a
talking
car
about
person. I cannot even deal with this answer.
We talk about there's two things embedded in that are high in priorities to me. Value of the car, I know it depreciates, and time. Like, I refuse to spend my time waxing on what I made it clear. For one, we share a joint account. I didn't say you can't go to a drive-through. I'm not washing your car. This is what needs to be understood. I'm not doing it. Doesn't mean your car can't get washed. I'm not doing it. Just like I mean, if you have a problem with the person not going and responding to your
cleaning up the clothes, folding the clothes,
the clothes being cleaned up, get a maid. Get the kids to do it. But that person is clearly not going to do it, and you can't control them. I'm sorry. And you deciding to be mad at them because they didn't do it, that is your choice. I'm not saying it's not a valid thing to be frustrated about. You want your house tidy or whatever, but it's clearly something that you're passionate about. So take care of it so that you don't have to see it. But to have expectations of someone that
it also
never
means that you have to know your standards before you get into a relationship this far, right? So if your standard really is like having a clean house is a really big deal, then that needs to be something we talk about early on, or start the conversion process.
I started the conversation with choosing. So if your standards are someone that's domesticated, choose a person that's domesticated. See evidence that they're domesticated and move forward with that person. But don't get into a relationship or marriage and then now you're getting frustrated because now they're not what you would prefer them to be. That's not fair. It's not fair at all. And you're fighting something that you already had evidence of, and that's not that person's responsibility to change it. Now you can ask for them to do so, but it's still their choice whether they do it or not.
Agreed. The resentment part, right? So expectations preserve your resentment. And for me, I read that as expectations kind of nurture and fester and feed your resentment. But it goes both ways. Like, so if your expectations aren't met, it causes resentment. But if you have built up resentment from past hurts, you're bringing negative expectations to the relationship anyway, which continues to reiterate and reinforce the situation. So again, it's all about self-reflection. Are you bringing resentment in? Like, if you have you mad about somebody not folding the clothes because your mother made you fold the clothes and you got some bad feelings about that, and every time you see the clothes unfolded, you feeling some kind of way because I don't feel it. Like, you brought that to the table, like that. You brought a whole lot of stuff into this whole folding of clothes that the other person may or may not be aware of. Because to be honest, from an empathetic standpoint, if I knew that, for just being extreme, but not folding the clothes triggered some abusive situation in your life, I might be more sentimental and go, okay, I'm gonna fold the clothes because I don't want to trigger some sort of emotional response. Doesn't mean I want to fold the clothes, but I'm trying to be empathetic. But you know what I mean? Like, but that's still coming from a conversation that you gotta, like, why do I feel like these folding the clothes is an issue? Because it's either control and you just want to control somebody, or you really have some issue about being clean that needs to be talked out so the other person can, like, and you said this before, understand why this is an issue, because I'm more likely to behave differently if I understand why you have this kind of reaction.
Most certainly. And that's, how do I say this? So a lot of times we even create the actual environment that we're frustrated about. I'll give you an example. So remember we had the whole conversation about people wanting to feel needed and wanted. I encounter so many people that are just so frustrated. I do everything in the house. I cook, I clean, I help the kids get ready for school. I help the kids get dressed. I got to get the kids up early or what have you. And they walk right past my husband. They don't ask him nothing. They come straight to me and they ask me everything. They disregard my husband or they disregard my wife. They come straight to me and I got all this stuff going on in my household. Okay. Couple things that we got to analyze here. One, how does your husband or your wife respond to the kids that they don't go by him to come to you? Two, what are you doing that's making them okay with coming to you? Three, why don't your children know how to do those things for themselves? So if we get to the root of it, typically it's because you either don't want to take the time to help the person or child do stuff for themselves, and the mom or dad is say, no, it's nothing wrong with your hands. You go do it yourself. So they know you're going to do what they ask of you, of them. So they're going to come to you because they know they're going to get what you want. It's not that person's fault that you want to go and jump up and clean and cook or whatever. I'm not saying that you should keep a filthy house, but I'm saying that typically you have created a standard in the household that now you're frustrated that what you created has created a monster. Now you have so many people dependent on you because you wanted to feel like you were showing love and expressing all of these feelings. So now they have expectations of you that you create. And now you want things to just change. After all this time, you have created this expectations of your family. You created the expectation. Well, she always cleans up behind me, so I don't need to get anything. Well, she gonna get the kids taken care of. So now you're frustrated because you decided that you wanted to make sure that the kids lean on you. You wanted to make sure that your husband leaned on you. You wanted to make sure that your wife depended on you. So now you're frustrated because they want to do or want you to do what you've been doing. And now you want change and you're frustrated and you resent them. And now you feel like they don't love you because they won't let you. I have to do everything in this house. You've been doing everything. Nobody told you to do that. So how you gonna get mad at me because the kids walk past me because you are gonna do what they ask you to do, and I'm gonna sit and watch.
I was married and depressed, clinically depressed. And I will say, and I didn't even know what clinically depressed meant and that's why I didn't treat it, and it got worse. Is what I'm saying. Because I had heaped on myself the need to demonstrate value by service, right? So I had determined based on the social cues that my role meant that I had to express a lot of service. So all of the things that you said, I had to do all of those things, and that would make me the wife. And not reflecting on that, though, you're right. It turns into, why do I have to do all this? Why is my voice not being heard? Why am I? Because now I've given out all of this, but I don't get anything back in. Yet it's because of a conversation I had based on what I believed or heard, and I never really vetted that with. Let me even add this. I had those feelings. I expressed frustration from time to time, like, why do you always get to come home, sit on the couch and watch TV, and I'm chasing 3 kids around? And it's like, well, I worked all day and I paid the bills, so I get to sit down. Again, accepting that answer and not being wise enough to say, but we should be collaborating because this is a relationship.
Yeah.
We should be, how can I help you get what you need, which is to sit down for a few minutes, but how can you help me get what I need, which is a break for a few minutes? Like, we never had that conversation because I was so stuck in the role situation that I was like, well, I guess I'm stuck. And now I'm mad. And I'm stuck and I'm mad and I don't have any outlet for this. And I still have the responsibilities. And it's just a circular kind of logic that ultimately led me to leave. But in retrospect, and I talk about this when I mentor, is it didn't require leaving. It required a conversation and some counseling about some real, very significant root issues, which were, I'm not feeling important and I've overserved you because I can't express to you that I need to feel valued. And you feel like your identity is wrapped up in providing. So you feel like you're giving me, like having those conversations would have kind of diffused some of this depression. But I'm saying, like, we're talking about standards, commitment, and being in a good, strong, loving, not like no love relationship. It's gonna take the work. Like you're gonna have to be a little transparent and put in the work to say, I've sat and thought about this, and here's the real root of my concern.
And it's interesting you say that, because definitely doing the work is necessary. But the crazy thing about it is we shy away from the work, but it's not that much work. And what I mean by this is a good example of like the example that I just brought up. I remember it was a time where my wife would be frustrated, like the kids keep coming to me to ask, and I'm like, well, did you ever ask why they do that or why they walk past me? I said, I'm gonna tell you why. It's because when they ask me to do something, I'm saying, come on, and I'm either, just like I do with you, I'm gonna make them do it for themselves, and I'm gonna show them how to do it. But that takes time, especially if you're trying to move fast. That takes time. So what we do is we say, I don't have time for that, so I'm gonna just do it. I'm gonna just get them dressed. I'm gonna get whatever, and we don't take the time to make sure that they get that particular lesson or how to do it, so that it frees up time when they finally get it. So we rather use all of our energy and time just trying to get it done because we'll get it done faster, instead of investing the time and teaching them how to do it. My children gonna walk past that. Nope, daddy gonna make me do it. Daddy gonna make me learn how to do it or whatever. So I'm not messing with that. Mommy, she's gonna end up doing it, so let me go. But things have changed. Now I'm starting to see, because she heard what I said. I'm like, go ahead. You keep on doing it. And then she started, nah, y'all gonna do it. You come here and or she'll have me show them how to do it. I'm fine with that. But don't get mad at me because you created your own monster and then expect me to jump in. Well, why you ain't jump in? Because he ain't asked me to do it. He asked you. Whenever he asked me to do it, I get up and I'm going about my business, not showing. He ain't asked me. He asked you. Well, why you ain't asked?
That plays into the idea that we should also do the work in a relationship of showing you how to treat me early.
Oh yeah, most certainly.
So if I take the time to break down for you why this makes me feel this way, or why I like this, or why I don't like this early on, when it's really not as the stakes aren't as high, right? Mm-hmm. So let me be transparent early. Where if you don't like this, then you can move on and there's not a lot of loss. Rather than later on, like then your same story with the kids. Like later on, I'm fed up now because every time they ask me, and the same thing in a relationship. If you didn't take the time to explain why, now you like deep in with the relationship. Now you got emotions invested, or money invested, or there's people, and now you like, I should have told them like 3 years ago that I don't like that. Yeah. But if I had told them, then he would have had a chance to address it.
Most certainly. So. And that's why it's important to understand the difference between expectations and standards, because I'll tell you right now, there's no wiggle room when it comes to standards. Like I said earlier, I'm not going to be disrespected. I'm not going to be. So if I bring that to you and it's clearly a respect issue, then you have the right to say, I'm not dealing with this anymore and move on. But I'm telling you, 9 times out of 10, we're getting frustrated because we created an expectation and an outcome for someone to live up to that they had no idea as to what that was.
They weren't consulted on the expectation.
Not at all. Not at all. And if we take the time to say, okay, let me show you why I'm frustrated, and this is what I expected or I thought was going to happen. May I ask you why it didn't work out that way? And then listen to their response, and y'all have a conversation. But typically we're having arguments. And again, the argument has absolutely nothing to do with what you actually brought to the table in the first place. It's all to do with them not aligning with your expectation, which is go ahead.
You have to go back to your point. If we're starting with emotions, then what kinds of things trigger that? Like why, you know, like why are you starting with frustration instead of asking why? Like what is that? Is that a communication skill that needs to be learned? I mean, honestly, it does take some sort of vulnerability to even be able to have these conversations.
It's funny. It's funny you say that because
that's not my strong suit.
You're not.
That's not my strong suit.
Let me tell y'all something. I don't know. Michelle thinks that I have no emotion whatsoever until maybe about 2 weeks ago, and I helped, and I had a conversation with her about this.
Hollered.
I definitely have emotions, but I use them as guides to investigate where they came from. I never allow for them to dictate my actions. I just acknowledge them. Oh, okay, I'm upset. Why? I use them as triggers and things to direct my thought process and investigate where it came from. And then I find it, I pull it at the root, and I move on. I acknowledge the fact that I'm upset. Then I say, well, where did that come from? And I start investigating because I know myself. So I'm able to literally look through this lineage of events and say, this is what actually triggered me to be mad right now. And sometimes, which she saw a few weeks ago, sometimes I decide, you know what? I want to be upset right now. I'm over it. I'm
irritated. Yeah. Call it. I fell out. I was like, are you irritated?
Right, I know where it came from, and I'm fine with sitting in this irritation right now, but I'm not going to allow someone else to fall blame for my irritation. I acknowledge where it came from, and I am irritated right now, and I'm okay with that, but I know, and this is where my power comes from, and this is why she thinks I don't have emotions. I know that it's my decision to be that particular emotion at that time. I'm literally making that decision, just like the guy had a decision, and he decided to be mad about the coffee, and then he decided to be happy about the coffee. My emotions are my decision. So I have the ability to either decide to not be that way or decide to stew in it. And I typically decide not to stew in it because I'm able now. And it's another thing too. You cannot be both. You can't be high emotional and high logical, which is why I always tell people, like, you cannot speak to someone logically that's emotional. If they're mad or angry, like, you sitting there trying to be, hey, babe, listen to what I'm trying to say right here. Hear what I'm saying, babe. Listen, like, look, no, listen to what you're saying right now. Like, that's not gonna work. You have to, you either have to speak emotion with emotion, or you have to speak logic with logic. So typically, I don't know where the 3-day rule came from. When my wife is upset or mad, I'm not even wasting my time to try to be logical. I'm gonna give her 3 days, and then I'm gonna bring that conversation back, and we can have a conversation about the particular thing. But I'm not doing it. I'm not sitting there trying to hold on. And we do it all the time. It's no different from you speaking louder to someone that says that they don't speak English. It's not going to be comprehended. What you're trying to say is not going to work. Just by raising your volume is not going to make them now just miraculously understand your dialect. Doesn't work that way. So go ahead. Go ahead, Michelle.
So from what you're saying, it's either, and the reason I laugh so hard is because if emotion is choice, you tend to choose flat 90% of the time. Like, I'm good, no matter what. And I'm like, dude! So when I saw you irritated, I was like, yes, you mad at me. Thank you, God. So to that point though, so if you're not getting the clothes folded and you've told the person you're getting the clothes folded, from your logic, it sounds the logical the play out of that is then fold the clothes yourself for a second. Doesn't mean lose the thought. Keep the thought. I'm frustrated about it. I'm gonna fold the clothes though because I want the room clean. I'm gonna wait a second until I calm down, and then I'm gonna go do like let's talk about the fact that I just had to fold the clothes. And we've had this conversation. Can you help me understand why you keep putting me in a situation where I got to fold the clothes? I'm not upset right now, but I really want to understand. Why do you keep putting me in a situation where I have to fold the clothes? It's taking up time. I don't like it. Help me understand. But at least the clothes are folded while we're having this conversation. If I'm hearing you correctly, it's a better move is, all right, let me just do it and logically think about how can I present this to this person. And I have to say, one of the ways that I've been able to kind of get through this for me when I know I go to 1,000 and come back down, 1,000 and come back down, is having an understanding with the person that I'm talking to that I'm going to be mad for a second, but it doesn't mean the relationship is on the rocks. It does not mean that it's at stake. It does not mean I'm about to like go off the rails and leave you, but I need to let you know for a second, I'm not happy. So I'm going to let it out. But I love you.
Well, I would even add to that. So this is, all right, so the clothes situation, since you brought that up.
It's just the easy one to keep working on.
Yes. Since that's been the theme. All right, so I would, if I had an issue with that, I would already conclude, well, clearly it's not their issue. Otherwise, it would not leave the clothes the way that they are. And then I would, if you have a problem with something, I personally, my belief system is, and what I would recommend people do is, if you have a problem with something and you're going to bring it to someone, have a solution behind it. Oftentimes, we go and we complain and we don't even have a solution behind it. On top of the fact that we don't even know why we're so emotionally attached to it in the first place, because we don't even know ourselves. So what I would do is, if I have a problem with something, first acknowledge the fact that I have the problem. So clearly it's not a high value thing for that person. With that problem, I would, after coming to that realization, I would come to them with a possible solution. Whether it be, hey, how about we all just fold our own clothes? Or how about we everybody washes their own dish after they're finished? It would be something like that, because it's kind of like hoarding. And what I mean by that is, when things like that get piled up, and I'm glad you made that statement, because that's probably going to be the next show topic. When you let things build up, it's hard to even want to attempt to clean. After it's piled up and it's so many things, like you look at that, you're like, oh, I'm not, that's too much. But if I can compartmentalize the clothes, since that's the topic, it doesn't look as much as everybody's clothes. So if I would probably start with that, and express why it's important. Again, a lot of things we conclude are important. If you get to the root of why we thought it was important, it doesn't even have anything to do with you. It might have something to do with what your mom taught you, or your dad taught you, or life and experience taught you. Like, we don't even take the time to dissect. Like I said, when I'm mad, where the heck did that come from? Why am I upset? And by the time I get to why I was upset, I'm like, that doesn't even make sense. That's a dumb reason to be upset. I pull it from the root and I'm over it, because I realized that it was a decision, but I do also realize that something triggered that. So now I'm in the investigation path, which literally has taken me from emotional to logical. Literally in that second, I realized I'm upset. So I took myself from an emotional state and I went to logic. So the thing here is, when it comes to expectations and when we get to the point where we're arguing, I really want us to get to the point where we say, hold on, what am I really upset about? What am I really arguing about? Is this a standard that I'm arguing about? Or is this an expectation that I'm arguing about? And I can assure you, almost, again, 9 times out of 10, you're getting upset about an expectation that you created. It has nothing to do with them. It's something that you created and you decided to be upset. Whereas you can literally say, hey, this is what I have going on. This is the story that I'm telling myself. Like I told my wife, hey, I don't understand how you cannot. How could you not see that I got a haircut? That is really bothering me. I don't understand why it's bothering. Well, I feel that if you are really interested in me, if you love me, you would notice that I had a haircut. So it's real. I just don't understand. Could you tell me how is it that you don't understand or realize that I have a haircut? I mean, and it's really that simple. But the problem is we don't like to feel vulnerable. So, so we avoid that and we just go into it with, this is what I want, this is what's going on, and this is how I want this to go, and that's why we're so strategic. Like you said, I got two things, but they had a third, and you're like, that threw me off. That threw me off my game. We're strategizing how to get the visual that we had in our mind to come to life, and it's like that's not a thing. So if there's going to be any takeaway, is to check what you're really upset about. Figure out if is it expectations that I've created that they don't even know the script to, or am I really checking someone that is just disregarding my values and my beliefs and things, and they're really attacking you. And if they're attacking your beliefs and things of that nature, definitely stand your ground. But even when you do that, explain how that conflicts with your values and things of that nature, so that they can walk away understanding that and letting them know that I'm not bending on this. So
I would just add to that, if you're in a relationship, assume good intent first. It diffuses a lot of the angst. Assume that there wasn't malice of intent, that wasn't that their intention was to destroy you at the root and just burn you like the ashes on the desert. It was that there's some communication, and just use that as a driver to keep making an effort, and to, like you said, go back and check your motives and your intent. One of the things that you will always be able to tell, even if you can't articulate, is your motive. And if no matter what you're saying, your motivate isn't right, the other person's just they're gonna hear the motive, or feel it, and they're gonna feel the disingenuousness of it. So if you're assuming good intent and you're coming from good intent, I think that there's always opportunity to resolve.
That is awesome. That's excellent, Michelle. Start with love first. This is why I stress that you should be choosing your person with your standards in mind. Because if we can assume that they come with the same standards and the love for you, then we should already start with, he can't possibly, or she can't possibly be trying to be malice towards me in her actions or lack thereof. That's not, that should be the first thing that we come to the actual circumstance with. She can't possibly be. So what am I missing? That's why I need to share my story with you. This is what I'm thinking. This is what's going on in my head about this particular situation. So am I right in this? Because this is what I'm feeling. This is what's going on with me. If I'm wrong, please let me know. Start with love first, because I just can't see that you would be intentionally trying to harm me. So this is how it looks to me. Is this really the way that you're coming at me when it comes to this? And listen. Hear them out, but you won't have to really listen too hard if you don't start with expectations of an outcome of the actual conversation. So we go into it with a learner's mentality. I'm trying to learn how you could be loving me the way that you're treating me in this regard, and you go in there with the student mindset. You'll learn a lot from your mate, and you will capitalize on the opportunity to learn more from them, and vice versa for them as well. So with that being said, this is the conclusion of this show. This has been a great conversation, a very necessary conversation, because it's so many people that are fighting for something, and they're not really fighting for what they actually think that they're fighting for. And I can assure you there's so many people that they're getting divorced, not because they're being disrespected or their values are being challenged. They're fighting
themselves.
They're fighting themselves and their expectations. They want to be
married, so they want to be with themselves.
Exactly.
And they don't like themselves that they picked, and so they're fighting themselves. It just looks like they're fighting the other person.
So I'm gonna need you all to self-reflect when you come into these people, whether it be your wife, your coworkers, anybody. Honestly, when you're coming with these expectations, because it is you that's causing you to be upset and frustrated when it doesn't align. So if you go into it with a student hat and just say, hey, this is what I'm thinking, this was going on in my mind, this is the conclusion that I came to, could you help me? Because I don't think that you are malicious at all, but I'm not understanding why you would do this. Could you help me understand? I can assure you it will take you a long way. So with that being said, I am your host, Edward L. Fairley, and I appreciate your minds and time. I can't stress that enough. I love you all. I'm going to continue to study and just dissect circumstances that I feel will benefit you in your respective relationships to assisting you navigating more smoothly in this thing called love. If you all want to hear these shows, they're always recorded and then sent out on the other respective platforms. I have No Love Podcast on the YouTube channel, No Love Podcast on any other platform that is a podcast platform. I can assure you, if you just type in No Love Podcast, you'll see it there, whether it be iTunes, Spotify, anything of that nature. We're here on Thursdays unless technology or God decides otherwise. And then we produce it and send it out on Mondays. I appreciate y'all's minds and time. Y'all have a wonderful week. Until next week, love y'all and peace.